People who have pretended to fall asleep. What is something interesting you've overheard? I'm only friends with him because I feel sorry for him. Edit. For those wondering what I did afterwards, I played it cool for the rest of the night and then just never talked to him again. Must have been about 16, 17ish. Was staying at a friend's house who was with his girlfriend. He was the first in our circle to have sex and he ducking loved to brag about it. How much of a natural he was. How surprised his girlfriend was that she was his first. All that cliche registered sign bollocks. We all just laughed, let him have his fun, and got on with it. Anyway, back to being at his place with her. I go and crash early on the floor of their room, in a kick-ass little blanket pile with her dog. It was great. I was just getting bored of him rampantly flirting at her like a brain-damaged peacock. So, about a half hour later, they come in. And of course they start ducking. I honestly think they forgot I was there or something. I hear very loud kissing. Few Batman grunts. A bit of whimpering. They had started and finished in less than a minute. So I'm lying, curled up in the corner of their room under blankets and a dog, listening to my friend cry in shame while his girlfriend was finishing herself off. That was a great night. When I was 6/7 I remember staying up late without the babysitter realizing whilst my parents were out. I remember when they came back home I was so worried about getting into trouble for still being awake that I pretended to be asleep. Mum came in the room asking whether or not I was awake. I stayed quiet, and then she just sat down on my bed. She was quiet for what felt like forever but was probably only a couple of minutes before she bent over, stroked my hair, and kissed the top of my head whilst telling me how much she loved me and how much I meant to her, and then she tucked the covers around me tighter and left. To this day it's my favorite memory of her and one I've never shared with anyone. Edit. Thank you so much for the gold. Never expected to receive any. It just proves what I've always known. I have an amazing mum. Also to everyone who told me to tell her, I will. Her birthday is coming up in a month so I'm going to figure out how to word it in a birthday card. When I was a kid my mom would make my brother and me take naps for like 45 minutes. I pretended like I was sleeping. And I heard my mom talking on the phone to my grandma. During the conversation I assume my grandma asked what my brother and I were up to, because she said Imhully's brother is sleeping, and Imhully is pretending to be asleep. I was like duck. She said she knew I was faking because my mouth was closed, and whenever I'm actually asleep my mouth is slightly open. Ever since that day, whenever I'm pretending to be asleep for whatever reason, I keep my mouth slightly open. Thanks for the tip, mom. Was spending the night at a friend's house. I'm a guy, she's a girl. Brought my friend over because we were out partying. We all slept in the same room. I was laying on the floor near my friend when I heard my friend Andrea call my name. Wanting to sleep I ignored her not moving, to which she responded, "Okay, Andy, I think he's asleep. Come here." About 5 minutes later I hear the bed squeaking and her soft moans. One of them sneezed about 15 minutes into it, in which I responded, "Bless you." They immediately stopped. 10/10 would do again. Edit. Holy it, I got gilded. Thanks, my gold was expiring in a few days. Now I can spend more time picking out these smokes instead of worrying about being gilded. I remember way back I couldn't sleep on Christmas Eve. You know, being a little kid and all. So during this sleepless night where I guess my parents thought I was asleep, I heard my dad say, "Where do you think we should hide the new puppy?" That was pretty much at the top of my list. So naturally I was excited that I was getting a puppy. They talked for a good 20 minutes about the puppy, saying things like how should we keep it from barking before he finds him, before I dozed off. Next morning, I discovered that my parents knew I was awake and just decided to duck with me. There was no goddamn puppy. I got a Game Boy though, so it wasn't too bad. Weekend retreat at church camp. My buddy and another friend's girl and I ended up in a room with 2 bunk beds. We were chilling when I realized that I was the third wheel, so I powered down. First there were tests to see if I was awake. Then she climbed to his top bunk. Then kissing. Then her moaning. Then her telling him he should wash his hand. I got bored and did some fake sleep talking. They laughed and continued, but they called it a night without rounding home. She left, and I figured it was best to not give high fives till the next day. I don't know why I waited until we were at his house. Maybe she rode back with us. Still, It was my first time playing Super Nintendo, and as he handed me the controller that would introduce me to Yoshi, I asked him, "You did wash your hands, right?" He was so thrilled to get to talk to someone about it. A French girl I met in a hostel came into where I was sleeping and just sat there. I had just cut it off with her, so I didn't want to deal with her, so I pretended to be asleep for a few minutes. She just mumbled random it. She was pretty drunk. Finally, what got me up was when, in the cutest French accent, she told me she was going to set me on fire in my sleep. I should have mentioned that. Yes, I did sleep with her again after that. Sometimes you've gotta do messed up it to stay not on fire. Night after drinking with friends, I wasn't really pretending, more trying to keep my head from spinning. I overhear my buddy say to my other friend, "I wonder how easy it is to smother someone to death." When I was 8, on Christmas Eve, I overheard Santa eating the cookies and drinking the milk. Later he opened the fridge and ate a large chunk of a cake and ran around the living room smearing the cake everywhere. Santa was our dog. Was in this messed up relationship with my ex-husband when I was pregnant with my second kid. We had a roommate, female, but we would all have sex with each other because we were young and free-spirited or something. Anyway, I pretended to be asleep one night because I didn't feel like having sex that night and didn't want to turn anybody down or make up an excuse. My ex-husband and the roommate got to talking in the next room. The bedroom door was open so I could hear them pretty clearly, and she asked him why he married me anyway. His response, "I just didn't know what else to do at that point," seemed like the next logical step, and I took it. I honestly wish I hadn't done it, and I wish I was single right now living life. But now I have this ducking family and I'm not sure how I'm gonna get out. Hit me real hard. When I attempted suicide at 13, I pretended to be asleep in my hospital bed. My parents actually believed I was, and I heard my mom say to my dad, "First, my brother, now her. What am I doing wrong?" It broke my heart because she is a wonderful mother and always had been. We just have bad genetics when it comes to mental illness in my family. I'll never forget those words, and I'm constantly trying to prove to her the wonderful job she's done. This dumbass knows that we know he's awake, right? At a sleepover. Do you think he's circumcised or not? A loud fart followed by "oh it," and then some shuffling sounds. I was drunk at a party and couldn't fathom the world, so I laid down, closed my eyes in a dark room. I heard 2 of my friends come in. One came over to me and poked me in the ribs, then said, "It's fine. He's asleep." Then proceed to talk about how both of them were cheating on their boyfriends and who at the party they wanted to duck. My friend said, "I'm a nice guy. Thank you, man. May you rest in peace." My parents talking dirty while they were doing it. Edit. I was around 6-8 years old. A screaming match involving the line, "I want you to say one nice thing about my kids." 1. Followed by silence and doors slamming. I was less than 3 feet away as one of my best friends took a 19-year's virginity. We traveled from the Bay to LA to attend a rave with some girls we met at EDC a few months prior. After all the partying took place, one buddy took the older sister to his car, and my other buddy started making moves on the younger sister. I was sleeping on the floor, and was petrified, because I felt like if I moved, it would kill his game. So I sat through the most awkward sexual experience of my life to help him get laid. It was short and sporadic, but they both seemed to enjoy it, I think. So I think I made the right decision pretending to be asleep on the floor as they bunny humped on the bed, literally 1 stroke 2 feet from me. A long high-pitched fart followed by a whispered "Christ. Been holding that for hours." Middle school sleepover lol. I was sleeping without a shirt. My dad told my mom he has a nice build. I hope they didn't notice me smile. Went to a college party. It was late, so I actually fell asleep. Woke up a few minutes later and an orgy was happening. So I closed my eyes and hoped I looked asleep. Did not get disturbed. Didn't necessarily overhear anything, but I pretended to fall asleep when I was about 12 because I heard someone coming into the room that my younger sister and I shared and thought it was my mom who would yell at me for being on my iPod at 2 AM. Turns out it was a robber with a crowbar. He just peeked into the room and went out when he saw us in there. Really glad I didn't realize until the next morning who it was. I have no idea how I would have reacted if I'd realized some strange man was in my room at 2 AM. Edit. The only reason I know why he had a crowbar was because my dad told me. The police knew he took one to all the houses he robbed. He and his sister worked together serial robbing houses around our area. And I don't know how they found out or anything. I was 12. This was 6 years ago. I'm just going off what my dad told me and I'm pretty sure he wouldn't lie to me about that for no reason. My mum told a friend via telephone. I thought my husband was cheating. So now I do it too. I still don't know what to do. Edit. My father has not cheated and it's proven. My mum is just stupid. They're getting divorced now. I was pretending to be asleep in a hostel dorm room because I didn't want to deal with others. Girl and a guy started ducking in the bed across from me. She was on top and kind of with yay horsey. Yay. Wee. Every time I've tried it I ended up falling asleep for real. 2 people ducking and talking it about me. I heard my roommate on a cruise ship getting viciously and sloppily finger banged for over an hour while the guy kept saying to her to, "Guess how many fingers are in you now?" My best friend ducking the girl we were supposed to be having a threesome with, but I was like a young scared 16-year-old. Not something interesting per se. 'Twas 3 AM on a weekday and there I was destroying noobs on Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 with my school friends. Hallway light suddenly switches on. Hear footsteps getting louder and louder. I turn off my PS3 and jump into bed. I froze and pretended I fell asleep in the chair with my headphones on. Hear the voice of my dad, PSHH. Yeah right. I hit myself. Proceeds to tickle me. Didn't end well. I was dozing off in my bed with my girlfriend at the time when I heard her confess her love for me. She was pretty hammered, but she went into intricate detail about how she feels respected, enjoys the sex, and sees a serious future with me. The next morning I got yelled at for not cuddling and that it was a major issue. I don't think she even knew of her confession. Spelling. Pretended to be asleep at a sleepover. Heard my supposed friends planning to throw my clothes in the tree. Duck middle school. Lying in bed when I was a little girl and my stepdad, who must have been in there for half an hour, jumped out of the airing cupboard in the dark, roaring, and terrified me. Still hate people jumping out on me suddenly revealing themselves. I hate you. Quietly, passionately, by my husband. We are now separated and don't speak. Edit. While my husband was no angel, I have to say that he was the lesser of 2 evils in our marriage. Don't feel too bad for me. I deserve it. When I was about 13 or 14, not that long ago, I overheard my parents talk about my dog, Chowder. I was in the living room half passed out from exhaustion while they were in the dining area. Chowder was in the vet for a couple of days because of something called distemper. I just thought that after a few days, he'd get better and go back home and be the normal dog he would be. I was wrong. I lay motionless on the sofa because I was lazy to get up. I accidentally heard mom crying. I heard words like, "What will we tell her? And she can't know this before her exams. She might not do well." By this time, I got really curious, so I tried my best to stay awake while staying in the uncomfortable position that I was in. A few other medical terms passed and I hear the word euthanize. I knew what that meant and it took me a few seconds to put the pieces together. I cried the whole night and they found out in the morning. So there, not really interesting, just heartbreaking. When I was in high school, I was practically a loner. Before high school I lived in Central Florida and didn't understand friendships and romantic relationships because of constant middle school bullies lying and messing with me and stuff. Anyways, I moved from bigger city in Central Florida to a small town in Redwoods, California. I moved when I was in 8th grade. And I just kept to myself knowing that I'll probably move again because of my dad's job, so I thought there was no point in making friends. I was always keeping to myself and minding my own business. And I had a lot of sad thoughts and I felt that, like in middle school, if someone learned of my sad feelings then they would make fun of me. So I had to act like I'm not sad, since I wasn't good at socializing and I realized one of the easiest ways to be in a good mood was to hold my classroom's door open. I know it was a nice gesture so I just did it. And I thought being nice meant being in a good mood, so I held a door open every time. So every morning I would always hold open my first period door open. I literally just stood there and held the door open. Sometimes sit, but mostly stood there. You get the occasional thank you also, and I would just nod my head and not say anything. After a while in my head I would say it's working, no one will know that I'm feeling sad, so to make it more that I'm not sad and make it look like I'm happy by doing more nice gestures, I started picking up trash if someone littered and threw it away. I picked up a pencil when someone dropped it. If someone was sitting alone I would sit next to them, although I wouldn't say much, and I would say good morning, name, to everyone in my first period. In my mind it was foolproof, no one will know I'm sad, and oddly enough I didn't get bullied. Fast forward to high school. Well, surprise, surprise, there were bullies. I was made fun of because I was Asian on my bus rides home. I was being pushed around in the hallways, etc. However, I kept on doing my gestures. Because I do not want people to know I'm sad, even though I did break down crying once on my bus. Another fast forward to sophomore year. Every morning I would always hold open the door to my high school zero period, which was really early in the morning, and I would almost always be the first one there. I was sitting there with my eyes closed to rest a bit, and I overheard some kid was making fun of me and stuff. Typical. Then I overheard someone defending me, saying I'm a nice kid and stuff. But it wasn't just one person, but multiple people. They were talking about how dedicated I am on being nice to people, holding the door open, picking up trash, picking up dropped pencils, sitting next to the lonely kids, etc. Soon after I started noticing people's kindness towards me. One moment was when this one bully held me to the ground when there was no one around. He was telling me to put up a fight and saying show me how Asian people fight. Of course, knowing about expulsion, I refused to fight and let him have his way. Then out of nowhere 2 gangster looking kids shoved the bully off of me and told the bully off and not to mess with me. They were telling me how they got my back and stuff. To myself I thought that was odd. Soon the days after I started noticing practically every clique was defending me. On my bus ride a couple of country kids who was telling their country friend to apologize to me for always making fun of me being Asian. Some goth looking kids were wondering if I was alright and that I should smile some more since I had a great smile. I even realized that it was a bunch of football players that one morning when I was pretending to be asleep that defended me. Not long after I started smiling more, saying hello to everyone I knew the name of in the hallway, which was a lot apparently, joined community involving clubs. Heck, I was even nominated for the sophomore class homecoming king. I ended up telling people not to because I wasn't good in front of crowds. I ended up moving like predicted by the end of my sophomore year. But when I casually mentioned it in my English class, everyone stopped talking and looked in disbelief. Looking back, it was that moment that I realized for the first time that I truly matter to people, and I didn't think as much sad thoughts since. TL. Doctor was always sad. Held the door open every morning to pretend I wasn't. Ended overhearing people defending since I was bullied. Life changed. Edit. Wow guys, I've only been here for a week and I ended up being gilded. Thank you all for reading my story. Thank you for the gold. Guess I need to fire that guy. Not me, but once during a sleepover in middle school this girl pretended to sleep to try and catch us saying bad things about her. We never did. We really liked her. But we did say I wish Catherine was still awake, at which point she snapped awake and was all ha. You don't really love me. I've heard my dad listening to porn through the speakers when I was a kid, maybe 7 or 8. I couldn't even comprehend what I heard and fell asleep shortly thereafter. Sir, I can't just go away. I'm the police. My mum did this once when a friend of her father came round to visit. She was tired and pretended to fall asleep on the sofa, cause she didn't want to be spoken to. Her father and his friend proceed to talk about the war. This is World War II and they're Polish. This friend was sent to the border between Poland and Ukraine, and some villages were attacked by neighboring Ukrainians for some reason I'm still not sure about. He said they killed people by sawing them in half, and loads of other gruesome things she wouldn't tell me. Edit. Thank you so much for the information. I was always curious about what happened but never wanted to ask. World War II really showed a dark side to humanity, and I think a lot of the atrocities that happened in Eastern Europe should be remembered. Please remember incidents like this so that no one needs to suffer like that again. On my way back from a race in Colorado and my buddy got pulled over for speeding in Iowa. I was on the bench seat sprawled out trying to sleep. When we pulled over I asked what's going on. We're getting pulled over. I promptly said you guys deal with that if I'm going to sleep. Pretended to be asleep and heard the cop go, what the duck's up with your buddy? Is he okay? And give my friends a ton of it for having me asleep in the back. GG, cop didn't try and wake me though. Now that I think of it, that's not even the first time. I was a freshman in college and a couple friends rented a house in RI, and us all being underage idiots proceeded to have a massive party. Cops raided it. I ran upstairs and jumped in a bed and cops barge in looking for it, shining the flashlight in my face. I still pretend to be asleep. They call over and are like, hey so and so, this kid's ducked up. They laugh. Find a little weed on the other bed in the room. Proceed to let me sleep through everything. I overheard a drunk friend try to get with my girlfriend. She rejected him, told him to go to bed, and told me about it. +1 relationship point. My mom to her friend. When I was like 8. I don't actually even like her. She's so annoying. I want to get rid of her. Naturally I burst into tears. She said she was sorry. She knew I was awake. And it was just a joke. She's got a cruel sense of humor. Not me, but was told to me by someone at a party. Apparently someone else who wasn't his father went upstairs with his mother while he was sleeping in the living room. Turns out it was his uncle, not his father's brother, his mother's brother. Back in grade school I was over at a friend's place with a couple other friends for a sleepover. We were watching Kenny vs Spenny, the episode where they see who can go around naked the longest or something. His mom comes in and thinks he watching gay porn. Naturally we pretend to be asleep while mom reams him out and thinks he's watching gay porn in front of us. Sorry Scott, good times though. Well, one time I heard my brother getting jerked off by his at the time boyfriend. So glad we remodeled our house the following year and I got my own room finally. My best friend and I were at another friend's house. Other friend had a boyfriend at the time, but they were going through summit and split up, but we were always like, oh they'll get back together. We had a pretty cool weekend of drinking, games, watching films and eating food. We had the house to ourselves and we would fall asleep wherever. I was put up in a room with a spare bed and next to the boyfriend because I'm a guy and they wanted the guys together. I had been sleeping pretty rough one night, and I awoke to hear soft moaning from the bed next to me. He's just jerking off, I thought, so I just turned over and tried to sleep. Then it started again, moaning, but it wasn't him. It was a female. My distorted hearing due to drifting out of sleep heard it get louder and more raunchy. I was so freaked out. I was fully awake and I just had to pretend to sleep and endure this nightmare. After they finished, he waddled off to the toilet after stepping on my bed naked and the girl was left there. I looked at her to realize it wasn't his ex. It was my best friend. She thought I was asleep. I thought he was ducking his ex, but I still gave her a high five for it. I had been sleeping on the couch in my CCA room in school and I heard my name just as I woke up, so I stayed put to eavesdrop. A couple of mates were talking about me in a positive light and saying nice things about me without knowing I was awake. It was really nice to hear it, especially since I was a relatively low point at the time. Every time I think about this I feel good, even though it's been a half dozen years or so, and it always reminds me to uphold those good characteristics. In a high school biology course I was trying to go to sleep after finishing an assignment early. The girl beside me asks the teacher why can't he sleep in class. The teacher tells her I could wake him with a test on his desk and he would ace it. Still makes me happy thinking about it. I wasn't pretending. I had been asleep for about 30 minutes while my boyfriend and his buddy were smoking some weed. I'm not really sure what woke me up, but I kind of became conscious for a few moments but didn't really move or anything, so I was just trying to go back to sleep. Anyway, my boyfriend, who had been rubbing my back as I slept, turned to his buddy and said, "Hey man, you see this girl right here? I'm gonna marry her one day. She's gonna be my wife." And his buddy just says, "Yeah dude, I know, and I'll be standing right there with you when it happens." It was so sweet and it was so hard to not just tear up or smile or anything. But when things are tough I sure do think of that night. Made an account just for this. New Year's Eve 6-7 years ago. I was at a small house party, and after everyone was going to bed, me and my bro slept in the living room by ourselves. I slept on the couch and my bro put a blanket on the floor for himself. I was only laying down, maybe 5 minutes when the girl he was flirting with all night came to lay with him. They then proceeded to start ducking right next to me, pretty loudly. Then she says, "Wait, is he asleep?" Then I continue faking as he flashes his phone light on my face and says yes. So they ducked twice while I was stuck listening to my brother talk dirty and her moaning and ducking noises for a few hours. Probably not a few hours, but it felt like that because I had to piss like crazy the whole time and was too embarrassed to get up. Next year they threw the party again and my bro told me to come with him and I told him I heard everything last time. And he said, "Oh, I knew you were awake but I didn't give a duck." Interesting because it was my friends trying to decide what food places they wanted to eat at while I was napping. We went out for breakfast. I went to crash for a couple of hours while they hung out in the living room. All I heard them talk about was which place they'd want to eat at and the best thing, "Let's wait until she's up. She's probably hungry again," made me smile because A, they were dope enough to not leave me and B, they understood my love for eating. Needless to say, within 5 minutes I walked in pretending I'd just woken up. Fell asleep on a table outside at a party. Woke up but remained with head on table. Cute girl I was talking to earlier begins discussing me with my friend. Then says she considered getting off with me earlier but I kept passing out. I'm like, "Duck, yeah, let's get it on." Drunk me springs up and says, "Well, I'm sober," and now then passes out again. Informed by said friend of my idiocy the following day. Freshman year in college. I wake up at 3 AM to my roommate and her friend drunk whispering about me in the kitchen area. She gets up too early. I hate how she doesn't go out on Fridays. So annoying. Etc. If you had a problem with me as a roommate, tell it to me straight. Preferably do this early in the semester, not the week before term ends, so that I can adjust my habits and be a better roommate.